but the sicker I got as time went on. He recalls nothing of the rescue, of feeling the sunlight on his face for the first time in nearly a month as he was finally discovered and taken first to a Salvation Army medical center. He was then taken to the field hospital run by the University of Miami before being treated aboard the USNS Comfort Hospital ship and then flown to Tampa on February 21st of 2010. If his ordeal taught him anything, it is that hope springs eternal. He says those who are sick should have the courage to live and pray to God. And those who are healthy need to cherish their life. Now I know that I cannot hear times was written for our instruction, so that through perseverance and the encouragement of the scriptures, we might have hope. After Christ's death, Evans had, can you use of the Jesus? After his crucifixion, Christ's followers were hopeless. Soon after the resurrection, what message did he have for the first followers he spoke to? Go, my brethren. Okay, so that's what we're on today, my brethren. This gentleman wrote the book. Says, I have a 6 books in my library I wish I didn't own. Not only do I own them, but I have to use them and loan them out on a regular basis, which is even more discerning. Some of the titles are, Why Do Christians Shoot Their Wounded? When bad Christians happen to good people. Healing your church hurt. What to do when you still love. God is healing your way back to the people of God. I have a healing plan for those wounded by the church. It is an unfortunate truth that many people are hurt by the same group that is supposed to be helping them grow. In the time my class had the best attendance was when I spoke on when God's people act ungodly. The truth is sometimes God's people can act quite ungodly, yet with Christ's words to Mary Magdalene, we see quite a different mandate. Go to my brethren. We need to get our priorities straight. It's interesting that Christ did not tell Mary to go tell the world. It simply wasn't the time for that. We reached, as we've talked about in this class for the past month, the disciples had to have their hope restored. It was imperative that the first thing Mary did was go to Jesus' brethren. The apostles were locked in a room, desperate and in great distress. In their eyes, all they had worked for was lost. Yet when Mary shared the Lord, this prepared the disciples for what was coming next. Once Jesus appeared to the disciples, he did for Thomas exactly what Mary did for them. So how do we know Thomas? Doubting Thomas. So what does that tell you?
So even someone who's been with Jesus can doubt.
Down. So do we think that he kind of fell away? I would say he fell away at that time. But he came back because the brethren went and found him. So think about that. So even someone that was with Christ, could fall away. So it's very easy to understand that we, not even knowing Christ, can fall away pretty easily, right? Sometimes it takes that one word from someone, maybe not intentionally, but maybe they said something in a tone that we didn't agree with. Do you think that happens? Or do we know that happens? We know it happens. So it's something that we've got to think of. We're going to talk about that when we do a little bit of role playing here in a minute. But once Jesus appeared to the disciples, they in turn did for Thomas exactly for what Mary did for them. They carried him a message of hope. We don't know where Thomas was, but we do know that the disciples had to go to him. It appears that he had resigned himself to the fact that all was lost. Yet the disciples made it a priority to reach out to their disillusioned brother and share with him the news of Christ's resurrection. Scripture does mandate that we reach out to our weaker brothers and sisters, does it not? So that's something that we've talked about. And here we'll read in Galatians 6, 1 and 2. Someone get that, please. Galatians 6, 1 and 2.
Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness. Consider thyself, lest I also be tempted. Bear one another's burden, and so fulfill the law of Christ.
All right. And in this version here I've got says, brethren, if anyone is caught in any trespass, you are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness. Okay? So think about that when you talk to someone, speaking to them. Because that can be interpreted as they're being mean to me. Right? Just because of the way you speak to them. I mean, not that we intentionally do it. Maybe we do it as a joke, you know? So something that you've got to think about. We've got to put ourselves in the other people's shoes when we're talking to them. Because whether or not you meant it that way, their perception is what?
It's their perception.
Is their reality. Their perception is their reality, even though it may not be yours. So we've got to be careful, okay? Another one says in Romans 15:1, please, someone read that.
Now, we who are strong ought to bear the weaknesses of those without strength, and not just please ourselves.
Right. So in other words, we can't be selfish, can we? No. So we've got to put ourselves, what? Second, different, lesser than, and make sure we take care of our brother. Right? I mean, you do got to take care of yourself. Don't get me wrong, or you can't take care of others. But what's this saying? Not to be selfish, to make sure you're taking care of your brother's needs when you see them. What does the Bible say to him? If you see something you know needs to be done, you do it not.
We don't do it for our own glory, for one thing.
Don't do it for our own glory.
We should lift them up in a way, do our best to do it in a way that lifts them up.
So encourage them, lift them up, definitely. The question is not if we are to reach out to our disillusioned brothers and sisters, but the question is how are we to reach out to them? And that's what we've been talking about this past month. The story in our text has a simple but often overlooked answer. Sometimes in our efforts to reach out to the disillusioned church member, we only make the hurt more intense. Mary didn't go to the apostles with a guilt trip. What did she go to the apostles with? The good news that Christ had been raised. She didn't go to them, why did y'all doubt? Why are y'all here doubting? Why do you not have hope? She didn't say that to them, did she? She told them the good news that Christ had come back. When people are disillusioned, the only thing that will bring them back is Jesus. Most people do not lose their hope overnight. They simply drift away in Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 1. How many times do we let people drift away? Far too often. Do we tell ourselves, hey, I should have called them, they missed 2 weeks, they missed 3 weeks, then I don't call them, they missed 4 weeks, 5 weeks. They say, it's been a year. And then it may be too late because they might have the perception we didn't care for them enough to call them immediately. So something to think about. Our job is to make sure that we bring healing and hope by bringing Jesus back to them through our lives and our actions. Jesus knew the disciples were hopeless and hurting, so he sent Mary to renew their hope. Each of us can think of countless people who are hurting. Maybe they have been hurt by the church. Maybe they have been hurt by you or me. The only thing that will bring them back is Jesus. It was Jesus who gave them hope in the first place, and only he can restore it. He is just waiting on someone to go. So something to think about when Jesus says going to his brethren is not something that is done on a Monday night or during a visitation group. It is done every day of our lives. It is a part of your life and the life of the church. It's who we are and what we do. The church must continually make restoring the hope of our disillusioned brethren our number one priority. The reason Jesus sent Mary to his brethren instead of the world is because he knew that he had to have a strong core group before the message would be received by the world. The church today will never be able to go into all the world until we first go to our brethren. Anyone not agree with that? So I think we need to think about what are we doing. We've got a core group of people here that can make a big difference in the future of this church here in Blakewater. And I think we need to, have a coordinated effort like we talked about so that we can go out to our members that haven't been here in a while. So as we talked about, we're getting this coordinated so that we can do that. I'm going to say in about 2 weeks, we should have a list of people that we can start visiting, and then we'll let everyone pick who they want to visit. That way it might be easy because you know them better. And I would suggest that you get someone if at all possible, to start with. That way it'll be a little more comfortable. Because, Joe, we're going to role play real quick.
Oh,
Pick on you first.
no. Am I out of duty?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna do this.
So y'all think about it. So maybe you never know what you're going to come up against, but also sometimes it's how you present it, So, Joe.
Yes,
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Good. You ain't been to church in a while.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, a lot of things in life have gotten in the way.
Well, Joe, the church where you need to be, that'll take care of all that.
Yeah, I just don't feel that way sometimes.
Why not?
It just doesn't seem that way. Doesn't seem like anybody cares or anything.
Well, Joe, we care about you.
Well, I haven't seen that.
So, is that how you approach somebody? Definitely not. But sometimes they may feel that way. Are we giving them 20 questions and trying to see why they haven't been at church? So something to think about there. All right, we're gonna get Tony now.
Oh,
I know Tony loves. Tony, how you doing?
Doing fine, Terry.
Good. How's everything been going on the home front?
Staying busy.
Staying busy. You've been helping a lot of people still, right?
Yeah, I got 6 grandkids playing softball every evening and on the weekend.
Yeah, that will keep you busy. I
I
know.
go to a lot of games.
Do what?
I go to a lot of games.
You go to a lot of games. Yeah, it's good watching them grandkids, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What are their ages again?
From 7 to 13.
7 to 13. So yeah, they're right in the prime of doing all that stuff. Definitely. Yeah. Well, just wanted to stop by and let you know that, we've been missing you. And, we'd love to see you back at church again anytime. Anything that I can do for you to help you out?
You can go to my place sometime if you want to.
And maybe sometimes someone just needs a friend to be there. Where do you get most of your people?
The things you do.
The things you do. Hey, when's your next game, Tony?
Tomorrow night,
Tomorrow night? What time?
6 o'clock.
Hey, I tell you what, when we go eat at 5 o'clock, then we go to the game.
I like to eat afterwards.
Oh, after that. So right there, do you think you got a better chance at doing something like that? Joe, any suggestions between those two? Or?
well, yeah, the one thing that we have to leave with them is that they need the Lord and they need the church. Somehow or other, we've got to let them know that it can't just be that, hey, we need you. It's that you need the Lord.
Right, okay.
And
Yeah.
I'm not real sure how to word that, but it might arise naturally and just say, we really need the Lord to help you through all of these things.
Exactly. So basically, yeah.
I have an
Kim.
idea. I have an idea with what Joe said. So then bring a dozen cookies with you and say, I share these cookies with you. They're sweet like the Lord or something like that.
There you go.
It works for me.
But you see the difference between those two approaches? What would make you feel better? The second approach?
That's
Yeah,
nice.
definitely.
Caring. More caring.
More caring. And of course, people are not gonna listen to you unless they know what? That you care. So again, hopefully, Tony's only been out of church 2 to 3 weeks before I go talk to him instead of a year. And that's gonna be the rough part, is people who've been gone for a long time. Why haven't you come visit me before then? Oh, we got an organized program and we're wanting to get everybody back to church. I mean, that is true, but
There's nothing wrong with apologizing and saying, I'm sorry that we haven't been here sooner and that we ask for your forgiveness.
Right.
If there's any way we can make that up to you, please let us know.
you've been on my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry it took so long. So that's something to think about. How do they perceive you when you go and talk to them? Another thing I was thinking about is when you knock on that door and they open the door, or you give them a phone call, what do you think they're thinking?
Oh, no, here it comes.
Truthfully, yeah.
They're here to judge me and blame me.
All right. So that's what I'm saying. You don't have to talk to them necessarily about, church right to start off the conversation, because they know why you're there. You need to develop that relationship and make sure you got that connection again. Tony?
I want to compliment our elders, because when I miss, I get phone calls.
Yep. Good.
And I appreciate that. And I call them when they miss too.
But see, that's what's important. Does someone know that you're missing when you're not here? If they don't, then they feel lonely. No one missed me. No one gave me a call. So why should I go back there? So something to think about. Yes, Beverly.
We had an elder one time at Pleasant Grove that said he went to visit someone who was missing. And the guy told him, he says, a lot of people have come to see me, but they never mentioned coming to church or never mentioned the Lord. He said, we chased rabbits all the time. He didn't get to the point. He said, I knew why they came, but they never said it.
See,
So
they
we
need.
have to say it, like Joe said.
Yeah,
And he was asking him about church and everything, and he said, a lot of people have been here, but they've never said it.
Oh, wow. But I mean, that's the whole
So
point
we have
about
to be
going.
careful about getting to the point.
But then that's what I was saying, when we were talking, when I was talking with Tony, I says, anything we can do at church to help you, we've been missing you. But Joe, that's what he got hit with right off the bat in an unloving manner. Does anyone else want to role play?
When I was a kid, we had a little bitty congregation. We started a visitation program. And one of the comments of one of the people was, if those people really wanted to go to heaven, they would be here at church. So we just need to let them find it on their own. And I'm wondering how many people may not be that frank about it, but I wonder how many people think, it's not my job to be a shepherd's keeper or whatever.
What did Jesus say? Go to my brethren. What did he say? Go out to all the world. I guess it is your job.
Yeah.
To go find and seek the lost.
You mentioned Galatians chapter 6, 1 and 2, and it's to bear one another's burden and so fulfill the law of Christ. So that's a very important thing.
So is it important when someone's going through a hard time for the church to make sure they're there?
Yes.
Very important. Because if not, then what does it look like? Nobody cares. So, Eric?
So in reaching out to people that haven't been here in a while, is our focus to make sure that they're going to church somewhere or make sure that they're coming to church here?
Right, and now if they're going, hey, we started going to church over at, in Gilmer, that's fine. I mean, well, I'm glad you're still going to church, that's great, because I'm just concerned about your soul, I want to make sure that you were attending somewhere, that's what I'm here, And although I think, if you're leaving the congregation, you should probably let the elders know, but, but people don't do that anymore. Chuck?
Sometimes the response would be, well, we'd still have you on our roll, but if you are working elsewhere, we can take that, so that we won't have a misunderstanding.
Right.
And then at that point, you can report back to the congregation here, they are attending elsewhere and we don't need, and they're no longer get this membership over there.
Right, so we know they're going somewhere, and I think that's one of the most important things, make sure that.
Then we get our directory more up to date.
Right.
We've got all these names of people I've never seen.
And that's one thing we're gonna start going through the next week or two, and then hopefully in might be 3 weeks, we'll have some suggestions on who to start going to see. And Archie,
When I was young, you
how
moved
long ago was that?
a long time ago. And when you moved, you actually got a letter from the elders to the next church telling what kind of people you were.
Right. So there's a lot that's changed since.
Everything's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started driving cars.
But that's not a bad thing, I mean, dude.
You knock on somebody's door and say, I'm not going up there, oh, so-and-so offended me, I don't want to go to church where he goes. And then what? You're going to spend eternity with him, but you don't want to spend Sunday with him.
Sunday. So that's another thing I wanted to get to as well. What if someone told you that, hey, Terry down there offended me, I'm not going back? What should you do?
Just like I say, you're going to spend eternity with him.
But I would suggest, not that I'm trying to be a busybody or anything like that, but what did Terry do to you? Maybe, I'm sure you didn't mean to. Let's see if we can work that out. Don't dance around the subject and, maybe, hey, I'll get Terry to come talk to you.
Well, if
Maybe
you
I'll-
do, you have to say, look, you got to know Archie.
Right.
Y'all didn't mean anything about it.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we're gonna have to approach a subject that may be uncomfortable to us when we go visit, and we find out the reason they're not coming here anymore.
We've been on somebody's house and we'd have met us coming in.
Oh, yeah.
We stood at the door.
Right? But just be nice and polite, and that's all you can do. Janie?
We don't always know when we say something or do something that we've offended somebody.
Correct.
Because it wasn't meant that way, or it's just maybe our personality or something. So I think that if you're out visiting and somebody told you that they didn't come because I offended them, I need to find out about it.
Exactly.
Because I need to go to them and
Right.
say, well, I'm sorry, but what did I do
Right.
that offended you? And then they at the same time need to be honest with me and say, well, you didn't speak to me when you came face to face with me in the building a month ago.
Right.
I had something like that happen to me one time. I didn't even see them.
Right.
And I may have been face to face with her, but I may have been looking to get over in this corner for some reason, and that's what I was focused on. But that's something I think we fall short on. Like, instead we go to somebody that's not involved and say, well, you can't, blah, 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 and they're not even involved in it. So I don't know, it's hard, it's not easy, but you
No.
can do it.
Right. And it's tough approaching problems, right? Even in your own home, when you have to deal with problems with kids or between, husband and wife, and even in work, no one enjoys dealing with problems, right? But I think we've got to deal with them. If we find out, like I said, that Terry offended somebody, and that's why they're not coming to church, then I need to know. Because I'm, like you said, Janie, if I'm focused on going somewhere, going to the restroom, going back there, get things going, I may not say hi, not intentionally, but,
Yeah.
sometimes you got a mission. And that's no excuse, don't get me wrong. but, I need to slow down sometimes and make sure that I am a little bit more friendly.
I was just gonna piggyback off what Archie said, how somebody didn't let him in the door one time. I don't let people in my house, especially if I don't know you,
Right.
if I'm home alone or with the babies.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, it's just one of those things too, you need to be concerned about if you approach someone. If we start knocking doors, not just people we know, but just the community, you may not get invited in because they don't feel safe.
Right. And mostly right now, like I said, we're just gonna visit, our people that, you know, used to attend and are not attending now. So hopefully they should know most of us, but also, you know, in this world, you got to use common sense, and let's make sure that in most instances, there's two of us going, or a man and a woman going, husband and wife going, or if you're going to visit a lady, maybe two women go, or, you know, something like that. You got, because again, like you say, if you're there by yourself or with the kids, you may not want to let some people in just because you don't know them that well. So be very, very cognizant of that.
Sometimes I think the point of sharing love doesn't always require a big conversation of coming in, and I'll give an example.
Right.
This was before my life with Terry. My kids and I were looking for a church, and we had visited a church, and one evening there was a knock at the door, and I opened it, and it was a husband and a wife, and they said, "We were so happy to see you guys at church last week. We would love for you to come back. We just thought we would bring you a little gift," and it was cookies. Well, when they left, what my kids and I do, we went in, we got the milk, we ate the cookies, and we're like, those are the nicest people. We should go because there's nice people there. It didn't require a conversation really with them. All they did was reach out, show love, and said, "We would love to see you next week." They didn't. In fact, I think I invited them in my house, and they said, "It's okay. This is just to let you know we were happy you were there, and we would like to see you again."
Another thing we might think about, we'll not always carry some of our tracks and things, you know, that we can, if they don't invite us in, say, well, ask if they would, can I leave this for you to read, or something like this.
Right.
But we need to tell them who we are and where they're from when they come to the door.
Right, and we've got some, and I handed them out last week, some preliminary, you know, a trifold that we could leave behind to make sure they know who we are, what we're doing. Of course, people in the church will know within more in the community, but you can also leave it at the door if no one's there, no one's home. So we are working on doing a few things like that. We may even make some business cards that we can leave behind too.
Terry, there's these cards up here on this table.
Yep.
And there's many times when somebody will knock and ring our doorbell, and if I don't know you, there's a 50-50 chance of me opening the door anyway.
Right.
But I'll end up having a card left in my door. And there's been people from other churches and stuff that have come by just to talk and probably do what we're talking about doing. And nobody answered, so there's a card there in the door.
So at least
Just the name of the church, phone number, address, and worship times, and that was it.
Good.
To piggyback off of what Eric's saying, you know, a lot of people have cameras, they can see who's coming, and if they are feeling guilty because, hey, I haven't been there, they may not answer the door. They may try to silence the dog so, you know, people don't know that they're there.
Right.
And I think leaving something on the door just is the first step of, hey, they're making an effort. And then the next week or 2 weeks later, when another effort's made. And, you know, I think it's about, at first, it's just gotta be kind of the gentle nudging. Because if you come in, you know, hey, we need you in church, you need the Lord, you know, you gotta get right with God. It's going to push people back so far that I don't think even the best person that's able to communicate these type of things can help recover from that, have that person recover. So it's gotta be a gentleness.
Yeah.
Because anybody who's spending
Restore
time
them
in
with
church,
love.
yes, understands, they need to be here and they know why you're there.
But like we also talked about, we do have to mention church, and we've been missing you and things like that. But when you go approach someone and you tell them you need, you this, you that, what automatically happens?
They get defensive, eh?
Defensive, a wall goes up.
Yeah.
So we gotta be very careful of how you approach, you know, especially when if they open the door and start talking to you. And that's why I'm talking about, if you know the people that we're putting on these lists from our directory that we need to go visit, and you've got a personal relationship with them or know a little bit about them and what they're doing, at least you can go in and start talking about their life and what's going on in their life. And one thing is, let's say Tony said, well, I've been having some issues with X, Y, and Z. Well, you want some help with that? You need help. So be prepared to help, or be prepared to get help to an individual if they need it. Because sometimes that's, they might be throwing out a lifeline, and are we listening so we can catch what they're asking?
I was about to say, you this, that. I learned early on when I was counseling, group meetings, that is called a verbal attack on somebody.
When you
Verbal-
say you that and you that.
Yeah, that's a verbal attack. And people may not realize that, but that is the way they're unknowingly taking it.
Right.
And so we need to watch that. If, complimenting them on something, you sure have a nice house there or something. It's different, and another thing I wanted to share, I was at the grocery store one time a few years ago, and someone walked up to me, I had no idea. And she said, "Hi, Janie." Well, I knew that this was somebody that had seen me and met me some before. And I guess I looked surprised or something, and she introduced herself. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you." This might happen to some of us too. Because it does.
Right, it happens all the time.
So we
Happened with me and Sean before. We were in Home Depot and he's like, I'm going. Yeah, it can happen. You gotta be careful.
You
Yes.
have to remember too, some people have left the church, not because of what happened in the church. It's stuff that has happened outside, like in work or, other stuff, family matters or
Right.
whatever. And which makes them not, maybe they don't want to come back.
Right.
So sometimes it's like, I know we always say, well, we're not calling these people. When we do this, we need to make sure that we're not looking at it as, what did we do? What did we do wrong?
Right, yeah.
Because it could be any number of things. And some people don't want to come. They know how so-and-so is out there in the working world. And I'm not sitting foot in the same building they are, if they're going to act like that during the week and then be on church on Sunday morning. So you have a lot of different things that we have to look at when you do go visit people.
Right, and I think that's one thing that we've got to think about. Like I say, it may not be anything that the church has done. It may be, like it says, the cares of this world have taken them away and caused their roots to wither. So again, we need to listen to that. Is there something we can do to support them and to help them and show them love? Eric?
Janet's right, but then on the other hand, there are things that some churches either do or don't do that can push members to go somewhere else. They may not have left the church completely, they've just found somewhere else to go. And the longevity of a church depends on having young people in it.
Right.
That is a requirement. I mean, you look at the average age that we have here, and it's just there. And I know this is probably a conversation for a different time. There's definitely not enough time right now, but I'm just saying, just keep in mind there are things that a church either does or doesn't do that can drive people to go to church somewhere else. And that happens over a long enough period of time, that church, however, is driving people away. It's not gonna last long.
Right. Brenda?
I do think we have a residual effect from the COVID too. 5 years ago, we were having come as you are, stay in your car. And I think a lot of people got very comfortable with watching church on TV and seeing it over the internet. And I don't think they realize how much we miss having them here.
Right.
That was they can be in their pajamas and, you know, fulfill the requirement of watching the service.
Well, there are actually still people that are scared to death of that.
True.
Yeah, there are, I mean, I go out and every week I see it there. You know, there's still people that are scared. One thing that I asked you to think about before we leave, so remember, as people come in, they're gonna get an impression. So what's their first impression of the church when they come in? The foyer. Is the foyer set up so that they get the information they easily need? Is the foyer set up so that we can talk to people as we need to talk to when they come in? If they come in with kids, are classes prepared for the kids to have a class? Or is it disorganized and we're trying to find someone and get everything worked up in a matter of a couple of seconds?
I think the most important thing is somebody to speak to.
Mhm.
Because years ago, when we lived in Dallas, we were looking for a church. And I found one, I loved what was preached, I loved everything about it, I loved. Except for the fact that we were able to walk in and walk out and spend a little over an hour there and nobody said a word to us.
Nobody said anything.
We did not go back.
So think about that, and that's, you know, personally what happened with Eric and Bonnie. So something to think about. And,
That won't happen.
I don't think that's gonna happen here. I think they can testify to it.
But I
John?
I think Joe had something to say. I just wanted to say that the day I was sick, I had that reaction or whatever, so I watched this online. And so maybe our communication on the card or whatever, like Eric said, when you leave a card, when you knock on doors, go visit people, let them know that this is streamed live, because the morning I was on there, it was me and one other person. I talked to my buddy later who comes occasionally from Tyler. It was me and him, but you're only two on there. So I don't know if the people who don't show up here to worship, that they know that that's being done.
And that's one thing that's gonna be in the flyer as well, is the YouTube channel, so that people can watch it, gives them another opportunity. But of course, they need to be here, but when you're sick, when you're out, that's when they should be able to watch the YouTube channel. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, it was going to make a positive comment about that TV service. It is a good work. It's good for some people who cannot come. They need to know, and they do need to know that, but we don't need to stop it because of a few people that we think may have quit coming because we had it during COVID.
Right.
Right.
Bonnie?
Walking in here, it's crowded.
It is.
It's hard to actually, I mean, I get a little bit of anxiety actually when I walk in and it's packed. It's hard to get through, and you gotta find your community hub, and you gotta get your bulletin and, you know, and then slide out or slide to the side because you know there's other people trying to get in. So, you know, I'm here all the time, right? But it still kind of gives me like a little bit of apprehension or, you know,
See, it's
anxiety.
good to have
I know
that
that sounds
perception,
silly,
so.
It's so tiny,
Right.
and the table, and, you know, it's hard, they're not flow,
Right.
so,
Okay.
you know, like, I don't know.
So any suggestions like that, please let us know, because that's important.